And it was really interesting because for so long I'd actually seen that people who were coming into my community, I almost saw them as they're the ones that I've got to work on. I've got to be focusing on them and helping them to heal. But what this whole experience taught me is that there was so much healing for me to do that I had not even done, because I thought that, by reading the books, paying for the mentorship, going on the journey, that it would stop at some point. There was just some belief in me that I had that. But kind of what I realized is that at every level there's another devil. Because one of the things that I realized with Soul Business Empires is that we were so focused on getting people the result that we fell out of love with the process. We fell out of love with what it was from the very beginning, when there was just me and 2-3 other people that had this vision. We lost sight of the essence of who we were and why we were doing what we were doing. And as soon as we lost that heart, then everything shifted. In making this new community, I was like, okay, we've got to get back to the basics, get back to the flow, and inject the love back into the community, and do it not necessarily for the money, which is why most people tend to do it, but doing it for the love, doing it for the experience. Yo, welcome back to Mo's Flow. The idea for this show, the idea for this really came down to me just having a lot of time to reflect over the last 6 months to a year, and making me recognize, as I said in the post that I put out announcing this, that I really feel as though I could have been showing up a lot more for my school community, but it wasn't from a place of not wanting to put in the effort, negligence, and things like that. But it was truly from me just not even seeing the goal that I had and connecting that to my own purpose. It was almost as if everything was there screaming at me saying, you've got everything that you want, and now just go and do something with it. But there was a big part of me that didn't feel as though I was ready, or didn't have enough things there to make it feel easy. And when that happens, I usually speak to God and I'm like, if you really want this thing to happen, then move this mountain. And as I was saying in the announcement post as well, like, that's exactly what God did, because I was praying for so long for school to be coming out with a go live feature where I'd literally be able to go live native in the app, rather than having to take people to a Zoom link or Google Meets and then having to do all of the recording. So literally a couple of weeks ago, I was watching the school news, which is something that I never normally watch. And on this one episode, they were talking about how they were building a live native feature in school. And I was like, well, that's just changed the game, because it's literally made it 100% perfect for me as the community to build from. Because in my experience, I've actually built over the last 3 years, my first ever community that I called the Millionaire School. And that was amazing whilst it lasted. It was very humble beginnings. It's where I recruited 2 of my top leaders, Anthony and Luke, who have gone on to help me, generate multiple 6 figures from their value that they've contributed. The Millionaire School, that was great. About 100 odd members that we had in there to begin with, just in a little WhatsApp community. And it grew so organically through referrals and people just absolutely loving it and having so much fun. So that really showed me, how communities can truly erupt organically when the quality inside and people love it. It was such a basic thing that we were doing. And I was just showing up for these guys, 16, 17, 18 years old, helping them out when I was only about 23 back then. So that was my first ever one. And then I kind of felt this switch where I realized that the type of people who the Millionaire School was attracting were the type of people that were very much focused on money and just making money, which for me is like never been the thing that I've truly cared about. What I a lot more care about is actually helping people, changing people's lives, and building business. Because I think there's a big difference between building business versus just making money. Making money is about actually having financial cash flow that's coming in, which is important, of course. But building business is actually about building the people, the company, and the business. Because when you actually look at the definition of company, it just means a group of people. And that's what I personally love doing. So I felt disconnected from my own community. And as that happened, it kind of fizzled out to where some people were still months later gaining value from the community, but I was not necessarily present. I wasn't showing up and I wasn't pouring anything in. So then I switched and I decided that I was going to build a new community, which was a community that didn't build anywhere near as fast. But what I decided to do was to go for the extreme of quality over quantity. So Millionaire School is like rapid, anybody can jump in, fast as possible. And then I went to the extreme of quality. And the next community that I built was actually a community called the Soul Network. So this one was just a community of maybe about 4 or 5 people. And they were some of my best friends. So like my best friend from primary school was in there. My best friend from America was in there. My best friend from Nigeria was in there. Like I just had my best friends in this community, and every single one of them I knew was in alignment with my why, like the purpose as to why I was building this community, which was to be of service, to be impactful, and to create a space where people can really grow. So it was great. Like we'd just jump on calls. There was no financial incentive for any of us to be there apart from this is just a group of people who can come together and gain value from having these conversations, whether it be in coaching, accountability for each other, and we were just helping each other like that. So the Soul Network was pretty good until we decided that we wanted to extend it to the public. So what ended up happening was I created an offer of which I brought people in to the Soul Network, which was really like more so just a thing of like helping people in the community sense. But my idea with it was, well, eventually I want it to be that people, after they've had their life transformed, then they'll go on to, have businesses that they start building, and we can partner, we can work together, we can all benefit in that way. But what ended up happening was the community, once it got extended, very quickly displayed how the name of that community was attracting a certain type of individual. And the type of people that were coming into this community were people that, as much as they may say yes to a business, as much as they would be all hyped up from it, they didn't really want to do anything apart from meditate and do yoga and like spiritual things, which I'm all about that stuff. Like I think it's really helpful energetically and for your mindset, but to just do that and not be practical in terms of growth, then it can only go so far is personally what I feel like. And so it's literally like I went from one extreme to the next. And we did see some great transformations from people that came into the Soul Network. But yeah, that was that. I've just seen Yasmin's joined in here. Welcome, Yasmin. How are we?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, there's a bit of noise in the background, so that's why I put the microphone off.
Okay.
But
That's
I'm going to be
absolutely
listening in.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. This is the first episode that I've done on here, so I didn't really know what to expect if anybody would show up. So I was just kind of speaking from my heart a little bit there. But yeah, by all means, you can follow on from some of the things that I was saying, and then if you want to ask questions in the chat, get accustomed to the new school live native feature, then by all means, you're welcome to. I think I should be able to see your comments on the side. If you do me a favor, just see if you can make a comment, and then I'll see if I can see it as well. But yeah, I was just basically walking people through my journey with building communities. So I started off with my millionaire school, then I went into the Soul Network. There were two extremes of each other, where one of them was very much focused on the physical, the other one was hyper focused on the spiritual. Okay, I've got your comment. Thank you. So as I went through those two extremes, I felt like, okay, what would be the next balance that I could personally have if I was to have both of the benefits of people that were ambitious in terms of business goals, financial goals, and also have the benefits of people who were willing to do the healing and spiritual work that's required in order to raise your capacity so that you can level up in business. And the happy middle then became a community that I call the community that was the Soul Business Empires. So the Soul Business Empires was my most successful community that I built, where because we integrated both of these principles, especially when I was first getting started out. I remember the first pitch that I ever did, and the first person who I ever introduced to the Soul Business Empires, like I told them what the idea was, that we focus on this 3-phase process of working on yourself, then after self-mastery, working on your business, and then finally going on to leadership. And the first person who I really broke that down to on a phone call was so excited about it that like I never had to chase her. She was always coming back to me. And she ended up becoming our first investor. And as the first person that came in to the Soul Business Empires, she did over 100K in revenue. So I've told that story quite a few times, and it was significant for me because it was the first time that we had that real balance. And, you know, we ended up having so much interest, people coming in. This is how Yasmin came in, for example, into our original community, the Soul Business Empires. But although it was my biggest success, funnily enough, it was also my biggest failure because I didn't realize that there was a true difference between, in business, leverage and scalability. So what ended up happening was the first people that came in, they got some great results and was able to generate income online passively, practically, and it was good in the beginning. But as soon as I was removed from the process, then things started to really collapse in terms of the productivity and in terms of the results. So it was around about January, February time where things really started to slow down, come to a halt. And then after that, I had to go back to the drawing board. And it was really interesting because for so long, I'd actually seen that people who were coming into my community, I almost saw them as they're the ones that I've got to work on. I've got to be focusing on them and helping them to heal. But what this whole experience taught me is that there was so much healing for me to do that I had not even done, because I thought that, you know, by reading the books, paying for the mentorship, going on the journey, that it would stop at some point. There was just some belief in me that I had that. But kind of what I realized is that at every level, there's another devil. So all of that was internal for me. And I decided that with the Soul Business Empires, because it was successful, I didn't want to let it go. I didn't want to get rid of it. But what I was going to do is just make it a thing where that was going to be my business that is separate to my community. Because one of the things that I realized with Soul Business Empires is that we were so focused on getting people the result that we fell out of love with the process. We fell out of love with what it was from the very beginning, when there was just me and 2-3 other people that had this vision. We lost sight of the essence of who we were and why we were doing what we were doing. And as soon as we lost that heart, then everything shifted. So this is why, like, I decided that if I was ever going to build another community, a fourth attempt now, if I was ever going to build this again, then I would, of course, implement the mistakes and the lessons, not implement mistakes, implement the lessons from the mistakes and adapt. So in this new community, I was like, okay, we're not make the same mistakes. And one of the biggest mistakes that we made was making a community that we personally didn't want to give to, that we personally didn't want to show up for, that felt like work, that didn't feel like this is just what we would do regardless. And, you know, I remember the feeling of what it was like when I experienced the most amount of flow, because this whole experience, like I'm talking about building all the communities, has really taught me that the more flow that you have, the more money that you make, the more success that you have, and the more that everybody is smiling and happy and experiencing the biggest transformations. So in making this new community, I was like, okay, we've got to get back to the basics, get back to the flow, and inject the love back into the community, and do it not necessarily for the money, which is why most people tend to do it, but doing it for the love, doing it for the experience.